Hi, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to this webcast. It's great that you're interested in finding out about the impact of language in engaging a global workforce. I'm Susan Lankfer and I'm Head of Client Relations here at Comtech Translations. I've been in the translation industry since 2009 and having worked as a project manager, account manager and now Head of Client Relations, I have experienced many a translation project and supported a wide range of clients in terms of size, global reach and industry. Global organisations are investing heavily in the localisation of content that engages their staff. Internal communications and learning and development are two key areas in which engagement with staff is so important. So this webcast will focus primarily on these two key areas. I'll kick off with a quick introduction to Comtech and share with you how we've been helping organisations to engage with the global workforce. I'd then like to look at the one language strategy approach that some global organisations take and why it isn't always the best option. I'll then move on to look at the impact that language can have on engagement and what to consider when developing a multi-language strategy. So, an introduction to Comtech. We were founded in 1981 and offer the full range of translation and localization services for digital, print and audiovisual content. We work with a wide range of authoring and content creation tools, including Articulate Storyline, Evolve, Adapt, InDesign, the full Microsoft suite and more. And in terms of languages, we cover over 200, but regular requirements probably focus on about 50. We're able to deliver that number of languages and cover a wide range of specialist fields through our global network of freelance expert linguists who each specialise in a particular field. With 2 ISO certifications, it's clear we take quality very seriously. In fact, we're a bit fixated on it because it's all about trust. Our clients trust us to deliver the best and we take that really seriously, and that's how we've developed many long-standing relationships with our clients, some of whom we've worked with now for several years. As you can see, we work with clients across a range of sectors, all creating bespoke content for their staff or clients. We work with both agencies, for example, digital learning agencies or internal comms agencies, for example, and global organisations, and flex our approach to ensure it is tailored to individual needs. Over the years, we've gathered so much expertise on delivering content to engage with global teams. However, some organisations adopt a one language policy. So let's take a look at some of these organisations and what the impact is. Some organisations adopt a one language strategy, for example, an English only or English first approach. But is it really a one language strategy? And to what extent is it a success? What impact does language start to play? Back in 2010, Hiroshi Mikitani, the founder and CEO of Rakuten, a Japanese-based e-retailer, famously announced that henceforth English would be the official language of the company's 10,000 employees. The English language mandate, however, set off all sorts of linguistic and cultural challenges. These challenges differed depending on people's backgrounds and location. 2 groups had the steepest learning curve in particular. The Japanese employees, while already fluent with Japanese concepts such as improvement and hospitality, struggled to become proficient in English. The American employees, however, who were fluent in English, struggled to become comfortable with new work routines and expectations from Japan. Most interesting, however, were the employees who had to adjust to both a new language and a new culture. These employees had the easiest transition when it came to working under the new conditions of the company's English-only mandate and hailed from countries as diverse as Brazil, France, Germany and Thailand. IBM also long ago adopted English as its lingua franca. However, the company also identified 8 other languages as important to serving local markets, so certainly not a one-language strategy. For companies such as Nissan, Honda and Siemens, a one-language strategy applies only to the leadership team, executives and senior managers. Lower-level staff, many of whom don't speak English, continue to receive communications in different languages. So as you can see, a one-language strategy can only go so far. Global organisations realise that, in some cases, communicating with employees in their native language is essential. Let's look now at the issues that can arise from a one-language strategy. When people begin to speak to one another in a lingua franca, cultural differences can arise, and so the next big step is to make sure that people become cross-culturally intelligent and competent in order to seize the opportunity to work in a diverse environment. There can also be risks of losing people who may be talented in management or other fields but feel that improving their linguistic skills is a tall order. In some cases, the perceived language barrier holds employees back. In some organisations, in meetings for example, employees remain silent until they're asked directly for their input. They don't want to lose face by using the wrong word or accidentally saying something wrong in the non-native language. A Forbes Insights research paper in association with Rosetta Stone Business even went so far as to say that in global multicultural organisations, simply expecting all employees to speak one common language, such as English, marginalises the potential impact of international talent and leaves monolingual staff ill-equipped to help the organisation compete effectively in a globalised environment. It also states that organisations with a high degree of multilingualism, not to mention an understanding of and respect for other cultures, will commit fewer mistakes and increase efficiency, productivity and quality. Language proficiency may also promote a safer work environment, an issue of significant importance for many firms that have opened overseas and domestic manufacturing facilities, employing foreign-born workers. Many global organisations therefore often will choose a corporate language, sometimes depending on where the head office is based. Generally, all employees are likely to be able to communicate in the official language of their company, although they may not always have the highest level of language competency. And that's where translation localization comes in, and where language can have a big impact on engagement. Now let's take a look at some of the stats and facts around the impact of language and engaging with a global workforce. As we've just discussed, it's true that English is the business language of many international organisations. However, when it comes to increasing engagement with a global workforce or increasing engagement with learning and development programs, for example, there is nothing more effective than receiving communications in your native language. When we're talking about staff learning or understanding key corporate messages, compliance and anti-bribery policies, for example, it's essential that miscommunications do not happen. Non-compliance costs can escalate hugely, so making sure staff have the required knowledge is really important. During the recent global pandemic, global organisations have made sure that information is provided in native languages to ensure a clear understanding of new procedures to keep global teams safe. There's also a wealth of evidence to show how much more receptive people are when communicated to in their own language, particularly around marketing, where research has shown that customers are far more likely to buy a product online if the website is available in their own language. People are simply more willing to engage if communicated with in their own language. When looking specifically at learning and development, research done by the Rosetta Stone Foundation showed that when training and learning is not delivered in their native language, 67% of people said that miscommunications contribute to inefficiency, 46% said employees couldn't contribute effectively, 42% said productivity had gone down, and 24% said that attracting and retaining talent is more difficult. And also, the levels of engagement with multinational employees was less than 10%. So what is the scenario when content is available in their native language? You can expect to see higher engagement, increased collaboration, no miscommunication, and better learning outcomes in L&D programs. It's no surprise then that in recent years we have seen a huge increase in the number of localization projects for internal communications and learning content, particularly digital learning content. Global organisations are investing in ensuring internal communications and learning content are localised for global markets, understanding the importance of language in increasing engagement. Thinking about engagement with L&D programmes, this also ties into the priorities for L&D in the workplace. First, let's look at the 2018 LinkedIn Workplace Learning Report, which was based on a survey of about 4,000 L&D professionals. When asked what was their priority for L&D, number 2 was delivering consistent global training, so it's all about how to scale learning and training globally across an organisation. Then moving on to look at the 2019 LinkedIn Workplace Report, which stated that L&D professionals now have access to more budget and more influence in their organisation. So there's a lot more buy-in from the top for investment in L&D. In 2020, the LinkedIn Workplace Learning Report shared that budgets continue to shift from instructor-led training to online learning in 2020, helping L&D scale learning globally. Of course, this report was published before the global pandemic hit, so a shift to online learning in 2020 will actually have been much higher than predicted earlier in the year. The 2020 report also stated that number 2 in the top strategic areas of focus is increasing learner engagement. And as we've learned, one of the ways to achieve higher engagement is through language. However, when considering how to increase engagement with staff in a global organisation, it's important to consider more than language. Looking purely at learning content, the format of learning content is key and is one of the reasons why digital learning is now a huge industry. Innovative technology such as virtual reality and gamification has made it possible to create new, exciting and inspiring ways to learn digitally. Smartphones and tablets have made on-the-go and remote learning possible. We can now learn from anywhere as long as we have an internet connection. With so many demands on our time, digital learning enables us to learn at a time that suits us, and through focused micro-learning content, we can access just the right amount of information needed to help us achieve our specific objectives. With millennials and Gen Z also joining the workforce, it has been necessary to adapt learning delivery to ensure it is stimulating, flexible, bite-sized, and encourages autonomous learning. The recent global pandemic has also fast-tracked many organisations into taking their learning online in order to reach global teams working from home. So thinking about the best format of content can also increase engagement. Given that language has such an impact on the engagement of a global workforce, what other types of content should be translated and what's the best way to communicate? Looking now only at internal communications, content might include letters from the CEO, intranet content, for example, newsletters, social media content, webinars and town hall meetings, and any other information that keeps employees up to date and informed on what's happening within the organisation. This content also helps employees understand the company's mission, core values and culture. If you feel a sense of belonging with the larger organisation, you're more likely to share its values and goals. Organisational identification, the term for which an individual feels at one with the organisation, is crucial for fostering job satisfaction, commitment and performance. If sending internal communications to your global employees in English only, it's likely they won't get the message. Even if they speak English, they are far more likely to read and understand communications in their native language. Professionally translating newsletters, corporate videos and other internal content into local languages will help overseas employees feel valued within an organisation and hence engaged. High employee engagement not only helps improve performance, it's also good for the bottom line. A Gallup study found that companies with high employee engagement levels have 3.9 times the earnings per share growth rate compared to those in the same industry with lower levels of employee engagement. Translation needn't always be the answer though. In the 1970s, a psychology professor deduced that communication is 55% body language, 38% tone of voice, and only 7% verbal. It's really important to bear this in mind when you're communicating with someone who doesn't share the same first language. For companies who operate in multiple markets who need to communicate in a common language, employees should use video calling as much as possible to support and enhance communication through body language. I think we've all got the hang of video calls lately, and yeah, definitely something we've all got used to in the last few months. So that's it from me on engaging with a global workforce and the impact of language. I hope you found this webcast useful and really informative. Do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or send me a message. And if you head on over to comtechtranslations.com, you'll find lots of handy guides, blogs, webinars and podcasts. See you soon.